His name was Ethan. At 12 years old, he was the loudest kid in his class, always telling jokes, singing off-key during recess, and narrating everything like he was the main character in a movie. Life was a big, noisy, beautiful stage, and he loved being at the center of it. Then one ordinary Tuesday afternoon, the school bus skidded on black ice. The world spun into chaos, and when Ethan woke up, he was in a hospital. His jaw was wired shut, and the doctors had given him a devastating prognosis. The damage to his vocal cords was so severe he might never speak normally again. The silence that followed was deafening. The boy who filled every room with his voice was now trapped in a world without sound. He communicated with a small whiteboard, but the frustration was immense. Every attempt to laugh at a memory or shout in frustration was met with a wall of silence and a jolt of pain. His friends visited at first, their conversations awkward and one-sided. Soon the visits became less frequent until they stopped altogether. The jokes he used to tell now echoed only in the chambers of his mind. He retreated from the world. He stopped going to school. He stayed in his room, the curtains drawn. Even music, which he once loved, became a painful reminder of the songs he could no longer sing. The whiteboard gathered dust in a corner. It felt like he was becoming invisible even to himself. He wasn't just quiet, he felt like he was gone. One evening, his little sister Maya, who was only 6, climbed onto his bed with her favorite picture book. "Read to me, Ethan," she whispered, her eyes full of hope. He just shook his head, pointing to his wired mouth. Tears welled up in his eyes, hot and fast. But Maya didn't leave. She opened the book and began to read herself. She read slowly, stumbling over the big words. But she read with all the heart a 6-year-old could muster. When she finished, she looked at him with a seriousness that seemed far beyond her years. "You don't have to talk to tell stories," she said. "You can write them, or draw them, or just sit here with me. Stories don't need voices. They just need someone who wants to hear them." Her words were a tiny spark in his immense darkness. That night, for the first time since the accident, Ethan picked up a notebook. He started to write. The sentences were clumsy at first, but soon they flowed into paragraphs and paragraphs into stories. He wrote about a boy who lost his voice but found he could still make people laugh with silly drawings. He wrote about a school bus that transformed into a spaceship and flew to distant galaxies. He wrote about a little sister whose love was powerful enough to refuse to let her brother disappear. Beside the words he drew, he created comic strips, goofy monsters, and brave knights with broken swords. Weeks turned into months. His mom helped him set up a small blog, which he called Silent Stories by Ethan. They didn't expect much, but something incredible happened. People found it. Kids who stuttered and felt afraid to speak. Teenagers who felt invisible and unheard in their own lives. Adults who had lost their own voices to grief, fear, or disappointment. The comments started pouring in. "Your drawings made me smile for the first time in months. I thought I couldn't tell my story. You showed me I can. Thank you for proving that quiet can be loud too." Ethan realized his silence was speaking to people in a way his loud voice never could have. Meanwhile, his physical healing continued. After 2 surgeries and endless, grueling hours of speech therapy, the day finally came. He could speak again. His voice was different, hoarse, soft, a shadow of its former boisterous self, but it was his. The first thing he did was read one of his stories aloud to Maya. She cried happy tears and hugged him so tight his ribs ached. Ethan went back to school and worked hard to catch up. At his high school graduation, he was asked to give a short speech. Standing at the microphone, his heart hammered against his chest. The auditorium was packed and silent. "I used to think my voice was the only thing that made me special," he began, his new quiet voice filling the space. "Then I lost it, and I discovered that I was still here, still worth something, still able to make people feel less alone." He paused and smiled at Maya, who was beaming in the front row. "Sometimes," he continued, "life takes your voice so you can learn to speak in new ways. Writing, drawing, listening, just showing up for someone. Loving. All of those are voices too." The room was silent for a beat, and then it erupted in applause. Years later, Ethan became a beloved children's book author and illustrator. Every book he created featured a quiet hero, someone who felt broken but discovered they were still whole. Whenever he visited schools to read his stories, he always ended his talk the same way. He'd look out at the sea of young faces and say, "Your voice might change, it might get quieter, it might sound different, but it never, ever disappears. It just waits for you to find new ways to use it." Then he'd scan the room, and his eyes would land on the kids in the back rows, the shy ones, the quiet ones, the ones who thought they had nothing to say. He'd offer them a gentle smile. "I see you," he'd say softly, "and I hear you, even when you haven't said a word yet." If life has taken your voice, whether it's your confidence, your courage to speak up, or something more literal, please know this: it's not gone. It's just waiting. Find your new ways, write it, draw it, live it, share it quietly. The world still needs your story. Someone out there is waiting to hear it. Even if you can only whisper, you are still loud in all the ways that matter most. Keep going. Your voice is coming back in ways more beautiful than you can imagine. Thank you so much for watching. If this story touched you, please consider subscribing and sharing it with someone who might need to hear it. We'll see you in the next video.